Hello, how are you? How's everyone? Greetings from not so sunny England. Today's literature session is about travel literature. And this is one of my favorite types of literature. I have just brought some books down from my shelf and I want to show you some of my favorite books. This one is all about São Tomé, where I went 4 or 5 years ago, and it really motivated me to go to São Tomé with all the stories of slavery, colonization, for example. This one is about Afghanistan. An amazing writer, Khaled Hosseini, about children in Afghanistan, and it really sets the scene to let people know about the place. Another one of my favorite books, Shantaram, this is about India. It's a brilliant book. It really, really motivates people to go there to find out about it, but a brilliant story as well as all the settings. And I want to show you something else. My bookshelf here. Now, look at this bookshelf here. These are all my travel books. Greece, India, Japan, Paris, Cairo, okay, all of these different, but Bulgaria, India, all of these places which I've been to, read about, been motivated to go to from reading about them. Okay, so I want to motivate you today to read travel literature and to write travel literature. Let's start the lesson. Here we go. Right, so travel literature, one of the most exciting types of literature that exists. Are you ready? Some questions, first of all. So I want you to discuss these questions in pairs. I want you to pause the video for 5 minutes. So the questions are, what is travel literature? Do you know of any examples? When was the first travel literature? Have you read any? Why or why not? Do you like reading travel literature, or would you like to read some if you have the opportunity? And can you write travel literature? Okay, pause the video now. Pairs, 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, so can you define it? Do you like it? Would you like it? Can you write it? Do you know much about travel literature? Let's have a look and see what we can find out. So I want you to read through this screen. It's about the history of some of travel literature, focusing on Latin America, where a lot of travel literature was first written about. I want you to read this and then summarize it to your partner. What are the most important points in this? I want you to pause the screen, read it, then summarize to your partner. 5 minutes. Okay, what do you think were the main points then? I think the date, 1492, is a long time ago when travel literature started, starting by people with Christopher Columbus, who discovered Latin America, South America. Of course, he didn't discover it at all. It existed way before he went there. And of course, it was indigenous people who lived there, but the Europeans like to think they discover all these other countries that they then colonized. Okay, here is another piece of information. It's defining the genre of travel writing. So it's a literary genre that has as its focus accounts of real or imaginary places. Travel writing can also be about imaginary places. This genre encompasses a number of styles that may range from the documentary to the evocative. Okay, so documentary is talking about facts, and evocative is very emotional and setting lots of different scenes. From literary to journalistic, journalistic there is much more fact-based, literary is more literature-based, and from humorous to serious. So lots of different styles of travel writing. It's a long-established literary format, and this early example here, in the writing of Pausanias, an author of the 2nd century AD from Greece. Another example, the travels of Marco Polo, who traveled through Asia in the 13th century, and that's a classic of travel literature. We're not going to be looking at the old travel literature today. We're going to look at some more modern, up-to-date stuff. So we're going to look at 3 examples of travel literature. As we're looking at them, I want you to think, would you like to read it? Why or why not? What characterizes the language and the genre? And how could you write literature like this? You're going to do some writing in the second half of this class, so you need to take advantage of and look at the type of language so you can write your own. Okay, of course you can watch this again and look at this and the PowerPoint on WhatsApp later too. Right, the first one. This is a book called Swamplandia, and it's a modern book, and it's a travel literature type of book based in the United States. I'm going to read you this excerpt, and I want you to think about those questions. Would you like to read it? What characterizes the language? How could you write literature like this? Are you ready? Kiwi was shocked to see how beautiful his home was. This beauty was a secret that the trees had been keeping. The islands looked so different from this altitude. Shining green, shining blue. The sun webbed the mangrove jungle in inky red. Where was Swamplandia? Kiwi wondered. Distance turned all the tree islands into identical green teardrop shapes. At this altitude, you could see how the current's hand had shaped them. You could also see the Melaleuca stands, which looked like mildew on bread. Grey trees grouped so thickly there was not a breath between them. I'm going to show you some more information about this book now. This is the background information. I want you to pause the video to read this and then discuss with your partner, would you read it or not? And what type of language? Okay, 5 minutes to read and discuss. Pause now. Okay. I haven't read this, but I would definitely want to read this book because the language is beautiful. The descriptive language that we saw just now, it really evokes the feeling and the colors and the amazing place of this Florida's Everglades, which I've never been to either. Very, very descriptive, and lots of adjectives, lots of similes and metaphors and allegories. Would you read it? Let's see. It also has a message. This idea in the second paragraph here about the diverse ecosystem, these sorts of natural places that we need to preserve in life and know more about. Okay, ready to move on? Number 2. So this is an older book, and this is by Ernest Hemingway. The book is called The Sun Also Rises, and look what it's about. Bullfighting in Spain. So this book was written in 1926. It's a tragic love story that follows a group of American and English expats around the left bank of Paris to the macho bullfighting scene in Pamplona, Spain. Let's have a look to see if you would want to read this. I'll read it to you because it's a conversation. As I read it, think, would you want to read it, the book? Why not? And think about the language. Ready? My God, isn't he beautiful? Brett said. We were looking right down on him. Look how he knows how to use his horns, I said. He's got a left and a right, just like a boxer. You watch. It goes too fast. Wait, there'll be another one in a minute. They'd backed up another cage into the entrance. In the far corner, a man from behind one of the plank shelters attracted the bull, and while the bull was facing away, the gate was pulled up and a second bull came out into the corral. He charged straight for the steers, and two men ran out from behind the planks and shouted to turn him. He did not change his direction, and the men shouted, "Ha, ha, toro," and waved their arms. The two steers turned sideways to take the shock, and the bull drove into one of the steers. Don't look, I said to Brett. She was watching, fascinated. Fine, I said, if it doesn't buck you. I saw it, she said. I saw him shift from his left to his right horn. Damn good. The steer was down now. His neck stretched out, his head twisted. He lay the way he'd fallen. Suddenly, the bull left off and made for the other steer, which had been standing at the far end, his head swinging, watching it all. The steer ran awkwardly, and the bull caught him, hooked him lightly in the flank, and then turned away and looked up at the crowd on the walls, his crest of muscle rising. The steer came up to him and made as though to nose at him, and the bull hooked perfunctorily. The next time he nosed at the steer, and then the two of them trotted over to the other bull. Now, pause for 5 minutes, pairs, discuss. Would you read it? Why not? Did you understand it? What's it about? What's the language like? Pause now. Okay. It's a little bit old-fashioned because it was written in 1926, but it's very good English. It sets the scene very clearly, very imaginative. I don't particularly want to read about bullfighting, but maybe you do. Next one. This one, wow, where's this? Pictures paint such a beautiful, evocative scene. Where do you think this picture is of? Which continent? Let's have a look. Okay, so this is Guyana. Do you know where Guyana is? It's in South America. It's a book called Who's Your Daddy? Is the name of the book, written very recently, 2021. And it's the author going to Guyana to reunite with her father. And it says here, readers are transported via vivid descriptions of landscape, music, culture, and proverbs. In the excerpt below, that we're going to read in a minute, White visits one of the most powerful waterfalls in the world, Kayatur Falls, buried deep in the Guyana region of the Amazon rainforest. I would love to go there, would you? Let's have a look. So I'm going to read it to you again, and then afterwards you can discuss, would you like to read it or not, why, and what type of language. Ready? It's our last full day in Guyana, and we wake at 5 a.m. to go to Kayatur Falls. Kayatur is the longest single drop waterfall in the world, with a total distance from top to bottom of 822 feet. We fly in a 9-passenger airplane that was built in the 1970s. There are ashtrays for us to deposit our butts. And at one point, the aircraft hits turbulence and drops half a mile in altitude. I grab Monday's hand in preparation for our death. The world we fly over is rainforest, occupied, rivers, and then it opens up into a gorge and mist abounds. We land and the air is so fresh, it's like drinking water. We take a moderate hike to the top of the falls, and while on the trail, our guide tells us to stop, turn to our right, and about 8 feet away is a cock of the rock, a rare, bright orange bird with a crescent-shaped hairstyle. Our guide tells us we're lucky because people come here from all over the world to see it and go home disappointed. I'm in awe. Before I knew the legend, there was the impulse to let the water take me down, to fall with it, to give into its seductive, forceful tresses. This is what the Patamona Amerindian chief named Kai did. Sacrificed himself to the great spirit Macunaíma to save his tribe from the Caribs. He took his canoe and paddled over the point where the Potero River plunges into the gorge below. Tyr means falls in the local dialect. It's believed Kai remains living in a cave behind the drop, and when mist surrounds the falls, Kai is cooking. Possibly a meal, I wonder, to welcome his daughter home. I get myself as close to the cliff's edge as I can muster to see the depth, to feel the pull of earth opening up. I run my hands in river water, pick up stones of that hard red-black rock we stand on, lay prone on it, press my breasts, belly, hip, thighs, turn my head to the side and listen. The rock is warm and it vibrates. Its touch resounds, shifts my molecules to resemble its molecules, and I'm unlocked and revived by a wild, sacrificial, grand love. Okay, pause, discuss. Would you read it? What about the language? Okay, I think this is amazing. This is such beautiful, strong, powerful language. And because they have a local legend there, it adds to the description to make it even more interesting. So now we are going to write some travel literature. Did you know Guinea-Bissau is the 7th least visited country in the world? That means hardly any people come here to visit the country. We need to change that. We need to bring more foreign dollars into the country. We need to make people more interested to come and invest in Guinea-Bissau. So how can you help attract more visitors to the country? Write some good travel literature. Get it published. Good idea? Okay, let's have a look. Where is this? Of course you know where it is. It is, of course, Bourbaki. So you can choose to write about the islands, Bourbaki or any of the others, or any other interesting or beautiful area. For example, Cacheu would be a lovely place to write about. Before you write, you need to think, what will interest people? What will attract people to come here? Beautiful descriptions, interesting local information, real life stories. You don't want to put them off. You don't want to lie either. So think about this. While you're thinking, let's have a look at an example of travel literature. This is from Lonely Planet, which describes a lot of countries. They have books about all the countries in the world. I'll read this to you. See if you think it represents your country, Guinea-Bissau. Like a microcosm of Africa, this tiny nation contains multitudes of landscapes, peoples, cultures, and plant and animal life, all of it within reach of the capital, Bissau. The jewel in the country's crown is the labyrinth of tropical islands that make up the Archipelago dos Bijagos. Long white sand beaches are lapped by waters brimming with fish. Hippos, monkeys, chimps and buffaloes thrive in protected reserves, and hundreds of bird species call its vast mangroves and wetlands home. Okay, could you write something like that? You don't have to write as poetically as that, but I'm going to give you 30 minutes now to write 150 to 200 words for a travel magazine about somewhere in Guinea-Bissau. As you know, before you write, you have to plan your ideas. Jot down a few points. What are you going to write about? Organize your ideas into 3 or 4 paragraphs. While you're writing, you have to check all your grammar and spelling and punctuation. Make sure it's as perfect as it can be. Proofread it when you've finished. Proofread each other's articles to help each other find some more errors. And then post your travel articles about Guinea-Bissau in the WhatsApp group. I'm really looking forward to reading them, and maybe we can send them off to some sort of travel magazine if they're good enough and get them published to get more people to visit Guinea-Bissau. Okay, so this is your task. You can pause it here as long as you like. Do the writing. I'm looking forward to reading it. That's it for today.